Welcome back to Spirit of Life. I'm David McLauchlan, and my guest is Tommy Canning, a sacred artist from Scotland. Welcome back to the program, Tony.
Thanks, David.
We were talking before the break about the influences on you in terms of the more traditional artists. But do you think that in combination with the more modern influences, you've developed a sort of unique style to you?
Well, there's something that's different people who have picked up on that in various articles that have been written about the work that I've done, and that's something that they are, conscious of, that it's a happy blend between the modern and the old, and it does seem to speak to a lot of people in these times, which I think sometimes, if you can see comparisons with that, with films like Mel Gibson's Passion movie compared to previous movies on biblical themes, I think today's viewer is much more discerning and needs a more hyper reality than maybe movies of that kind in the past were portraying. So, and people respond to that more, I think, more positively. So I've tried to do that in the artwork. I don't think it was something I was conscious of. It just gradually evolved in the work, that I had a very keen idea to create images that would bring some of what was classical, what would be considered the classical imagery, but give it a modern or contemporary appeal as well, and try and just do things that maybe just set it a little bit different from what had gone before, that maybe speak to people today. I think each generation has produced artists who try to do something a little bit different and push the envelope a little bit further. Michelangelo himself said that we mustn't merely imitate the masters of old, we must seek to surpass them. I don't think in any shape or form I've surpassed these great masters, but I've tried to do things which maybe speak more to people today where they're at in the world and their everyday circumstances, and will relate to them more today maybe than images in the past would have done, although many people still have a great love and devotion to many images that have been created down the centuries till this day, which says something about the art itself, that it endures for generations.
It seems to me that a lot of the religious art is essentially portraiture, that there may be some landscapes involved, but you're basically focusing on the personality and the character of a particular figure, be it Christ or Mary or the apostles, or a particular scene that is more about people and their relationship to God than anything. Do you find that?
I think that the very fact that we believe as Christians, as a Catholic, I believe that Christ came in the flesh. In the incarnation, he took on flesh. He became one of us. He took visible form. He became the God-man. And I think that in art down the centuries has always been something that we try to create an image that both honours his humanity and at the same time his divinity, being both God and man. So there's always that, it's a very tricky thing to try and do, and when you're talking about these themes and subjects, when you stop to think about it, it's quite awesome, to think that God came and walked among us. So, and yet he was also human. So through the humanity, you try to show some of the emotion of what he suffered, what he went through in his passion, and also just even everyday things like a mother and child, for example. For me, I try to create a real child because he was a real baby. Other images I've drawn of the infant Jesus have had him even yawning, with things that everyday things that people would do. So there's always that desire to show how God became intimate with our condition and the human condition. So there's always that desire to show the humanity, but at the same time sometimes show the divinity breaking through. And it's always a challenge to every artist. I think in any generation would say the same. It's a difficult balancing act, but it's a very interesting one. For me, it's fascinating to try and create that which leads you into the human element, but at the same time past that to something deeper, more supernatural as well.
Do you find that it is perhaps difficult to put something new into images that are essentially iconic in our 2,000 years of religious experience. Like people, especially Catholics, when they see an image or think of an image of Christ, think a certain way. And I personally think that your one there at the top is a very good, sort of modern rendering of that old traditional, image of Christ.
Yeah, I think. Well, for me personally, I always was fascinated since I was a child with the discovery of the negative image of the Holy Shroud of Turin, which showed what appeared to be the face of Christ on the cloth. So that has always been for me an image where I always refer to for the likeness of Christ, and I always refer to that as a starting point for every other image I've created. And yeah, it's again, you're always trying to do something which, because people have an expectation of the way Christ looks to them. Everyone has their own image of Jesus, Mary, and the apostles, the saints, in their own mind. So you're playing against that to some extent, but I think that also creates an interesting challenge to show it in maybe new ways, but still not totally radically transforming it, because I think people, my own experience, when I see something that's so radically different from what I've seen or what I expect to see, I find that distracting somehow. I think you tend to like to keep things the way or have been brought up to expect to see. So I try to keep that, not to be too unusual with that, but at the same time do something that maybe just brings something new to it as well. And it's difficult, but I think it's worth experimenting with, and definitely I've always tried to do that.
On that note, we have to take another short break.
Thanks.
You're watching Spirit of Life. We'll be back in a moment.